Hi, welcome to the next episode of VCF Breakroom Chats. I'm Taka Inishi, Product Marketing Engineer at Broadcom, and I lead product marketing for VCF Automation, which is a core component of VCF that powers the private cloud self-service experience. And in this series, focused on VCF Automation, we bring VMware and industry experts to discuss VCF's cloud infrastructure automation capabilities. And in today's episode, I'm really excited to speak with Vincent Riccio, Technical Marketing Manager at Broadcom. Vincent leads technical marketing for VCF Automation. And today, Vincent's going to help us demystify one of the most important yet often intimidating topics for VI admins who are making that leap towards managing private clouds, governance constructs in VMware Cloud Foundation 9.0. Vincent, thanks for being here with us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Taka. Excited to help demystify cloud governance constructs in VMware Cloud Foundation 9 today.
Awesome. All right, so let's set the stage. Many of you out there have mastered clusters and vSphere management, but as you evolve into cloud admins, you need a way to give your developers and teams that controlled self-service access without the chaos. And so that's where governance constructs come in. And so we're going to use what I like to call the layered cake analogy to break it down. But before we, jump straight into the cake, Vincent, I'm sure a lot of VI admins hear governance and, think it sounds bureaucratic or complex. How do you explain governance in simple, reassuring terms?
Yeah, think of governance as the rules of the road, right, that make self-service safe and sustainable. Without it, developers might each spin up resources in their own way, creating inefficiency, risk, and even runaway costs. Governance in VMware Cloud Foundation 9 is about giving teams freedom with guardrails. It's not more bureaucracy. It's structure that makes cloud operations, scalable and predictable.
Okay, that seems pretty straightforward.
Mhm.
Now, earlier, I mentioned the layered cake. Can you walk us through those layers and, how they map to VCF constructs?
Sure. Yeah, let me just share a quick image here. And so in this image, we see various layers representing one governance construct, and then together, right, they make a complete slice of the cloud governance in VCF 9.0, especially with automation. So down at the bottom, right, we have sort of our SEC, our compute, right, vSAN, NSX, all that great technology bubbling up for us to consume, and then generally what we have, right, and you're familiar with the clusters, right? Those are our base layer. There are compute, storage, and all of that we're familiar with. And then a while back, we introduced zones, and zones essentially allow us to take a cluster and turn it into a place, sort of a domain for things to live on, like objects and stuff like that. So for workload placement and stuff like that. And then that supervisor, basically what we do is we take those clusters, those zones, and we create a supervisor. And that essentially transforms those vSphere clusters into a control plane and allows for modern applications to be deployed there. And essentially what we're doing is we're embedding a platform level Kubernetes control plane directly on those hosts. Okay, and then above that, what we can do is slice it into regions. So we can take these regions, and they're a broad layer. So they let enterprises and folks segment resources across geographies or sites. So think of a region as a tier above the zone. So for instance, you might have some zones in a region out in US West. You might have some zones out in a region in US East, and those could be geographical, or you can even have regions that may have certain purposes and things like that. Now, above it is a construct here that's fairly new, which is organizations, right? And these can also be thought of as tenants. They form the first real cloud level partition for us. These are your customers of IT, whether it's internal business units or external clients. So, example, if you have a business, tenants like Coke and Pepsi, more as a service provider, or you might have a internal lines of business or internal organizations like financial services or HR. And then projects will define that a little bit further, and those will mostly be where your lines of business may be, or where you might have certain initiatives or projects, and that's going to be a group of individuals. You'll put people into these projects, and then also you'll tell them what they can consume in terms of quotas and policies. Now, above that is namespaces, and this is kind of our top layer. So this is where developers will actually engage directly. They will see the namespace, and then they will deploy to the namespace. And this provides a sandbox for us to run Kubernetes workloads in a governed policy-driven environment. So example, you might have a namespace for developers, a namespace for test, namespace for prod, and you might also have maybe a namespace for application A, application B, and these are isolated little environments in Kubernetes. So together, it's like a layered cake that you can, confidently deploy, and every byte is structured, consistent, and aligned together and integrated.
Tastes like heaven, Vincent. Now I'm sure, many VI admins might be asking, so where do I actually start, in this journey from clusters to namespaces and self-service?
Yeah, good question. So I recommend starting with what you already know and building upward, right? You're already comfortable with managing clusters, and from there, embrace zones and regions to create resiliency and logical segmentation. Next, you can focus on organizations and projects, which let you map out the IT resources that are closer to the business and developer teams. Finally, deliver namespaces where developers can self-serve the new private cloud services and build, run, and manage all types of applications, AI, K8s, and VM based. And in
Mhm.
9.0, we made it easier actually to adopt these layers incrementally, so you don't have to jump all at once. It's sort of an evolution, not really a revolution, right? In how you're going to do things.
Nice, nice. And just as a side note for our listeners, our buddies Maher and Alina, they did a breakroom chat on multi-tenancy. So I encourage you to also listen to that episode for more details on organizations and projects. But back to our conversation, Vincent. How does this governance model in VCF 9.0 actually empower VI admins to become cloud admins?
Yeah, I mean, that's the exciting part. Governance constructs are what really elevate that role. Instead of just keeping clusters running and so forth from a cluster standpoint, you become the enabler of developer productivity and business agility, right? You're providing safe self-service and aligning IT with the business. So you're really setting the stage for true cloud operations. And VI admins who embrace this governance with VCF 9.0 essentially graduate into cloud admins because now they're defining policies, quotas, they're defining visibility, who has access, and also, maybe even reporting back to the business. And that's a far more strategic role, and it positions them directly at the center of the evolution of IT in their organization.
And that's a great note to end on. Thanks, Vincent, for showing us how, VMware Cloud Foundation 9.0 gives you the governance constructs to deliver self-service safely, with clusters, zones, regions, orgs, projects, and namespaces, each a layer in that structured layer cake.
Yeah, and thanks as well, Taka. I'm glad we were able to help clarify that, and yeah, glad to be here with you today.
Likewise. And for our listeners today, hope this helped. If you are a VI admin aspiring to accelerate your career as a cloud admin, this is your starting point. And the best way to learn is to actually try. So, here's our call to action. Download and test VCF 9.0 in your lab environment and see firsthand how these constructs help you to modernize, organize, and to deliver a real self-service private cloud. All right. Well, thanks for joining us. And, we can't wait to hear how you make that leap from VI admin to cloud admin. And we really hope you like this episode. And please join us for our next one. All right. This is your host, Taka Uenishi, signing off. Have an awesome week and see you until next time. Bye.